60 who drank the water of life died. Paul Atreides survived. His prescience confirmed. His data became a threat. His hovered over the GOM data became a Jabara test of threat loyalty encoded in pain. Water of the life did Chris Knife's first draw sliced not flesh but the air itself. Atreides its arc a survived prediction of violence. The loyalty census tablet did not encoded in pain merely count lives. It anticipated them. In that anticipation, the Imperium's chains were forged. The Imperial census tablet didn't just track populations, it tracked descent, and it knew how to crush it. Bene Gesserit hands shaped its code, not to govern, but to foresee. A silent algorithm mapping rebellion before its first breath, every name a thread in their loom. Every birth a variable in their equation, how many sparks were smothered before they could blaze. The Imperium called it order, the Bene Gesserit called it calculus. Chains never needed to be loud to hold a galaxy. They did not need to rule openly. They engineered the silence between Emperor's words. A Sayachi's water writes, a T-Lalexu gene splice, a spice harvests Yildol fed the algorithm no one saw. The Fremen's hymns, the axolotl tank's rebirths, the bloodlines of noble houses, each a variable in an equation older than the Kwisatz Haderach. What did the census tablet measure? Not numbers, potential, a world's pulse before it quivered. A prophet's rise before the first stone was thrown. The Bene Gesserit did not crush dissent, they predicted it. The Imperium's chains had always been visible. The sisterhoods were forged in the dark, tempered by patience. A census is a count, a tablet is a tool. But when the tool holds the future's blueprint, who wields the knife, the answer lay in the data. Always in the data. The census tablet's power lay in what it measured between the lines, spice yields, guild navigation coordinates. Fremen birth rates, each number a thread in a tapestry only the Emperor could see. The algorithm did not predict future as it curated them. A world spice surplus became a leverage point. A guild route's fragility became a chokehold. A Fremen tribe's growth, a potential rebellion flagged before its first cry. What is control, if not the right to decide which data lives? The Bene Gesserit's centuries of breeding folded into this cold calculus. Their genetic maps, the guild's folded space dependencies, the spice's economic pulsol funneled into a machine that did not govern, but asterisk anticipated asterisk. A harvest delayed here, a transport rerouted there, a water source mysteriously lost. The tablet's corrections were never random. They were a language, asterisk compliance is a resource, dissent is a variable, asterisk the Fremen called it asterisk algebra asterisk the silent erasure. Not by sword but by subtraction, a child's name omitted, a well's depth falsified. A spice shipment vanished before loading. The algorithm's teeth were not in its code, but in the hands that twisted its outputs. The Emperor did not need to raise an army. The tablet's predictions were his preemptive execution. What kind of god waits for the crime, then buries the victim first? The Imperium's. The census tablet was no ledger, it was a noose woven from every world's secrets. And the noose tightened not when the data was stolen but when it knew you already. The Padishah Emperor's hand did not tremble when he signed House Atreides to dust. The census tablet whispered where to strike, where spice veins bled weakest, where loyalty frayed at the edges. Paul's rise was no accident, it was a calculation, a test. The algorithm did not predict rebellion. It cultivated it. Leto Roman II walked his golden path with the tablet's numbers etched into his bones. 3,000 years of tyranny were not a curse, but a spreadsheet. Every world's fear, every hidden well of rage, fed his godhood. He did not rule the Imperium. He balanced its ledger. A ledger that knew when a star burned too bright, when a people's song grew too loud. Then came the honored matters, their return a scream through the static. They seized the tablet not to destroy it but to invert its script. Where the Bene Gesserit had coded for control, the matters recoded for annihilation. Their algorithm bled, it devoured. Yet the Bene Gesserit had woven safeguard subroutines no hand could unspool. The tablet did not belong to its wielders. It outlived them. What remains now is not data but a ghost, a cipher that learned to hunger. The Padishah's vengeance, Leto's sacrifice, the matter's furial were ink on its pages, and still it waits. Not to track descent, not to crush, but to remember, the noose was never meant to loosen. The Padishah Emperor's hand did not tremble when he signed House Atreides to dust. The Census tablet whispered where to strike, where spice veins bled weakest, where loyalty frayed. Paul's rise was no accident. It was a calculation, a test. The algorithm did not predict rebellion, it cultivated it. Leto Roman II walked his golden path with the tablet's numbers etched into his bones. 3,000 years of tyranny were not a curse, but a spreadsheet. Every world's fear, every hidden well of rage, fed his godhood. He did not rule the Imperium. He balanced its ledger. A ledger that knew when a star burned too bright, when a people's song grew too loud. Then came the honored matters. Their return was a scream through the static. They seized the tablet not to destroy it, but to invert its script. Where the Bene Gesserit had coded for control, the matters recoded for annihilation. Their algorithm bled, it devoured. Yet the Bene Gesserit had woven safeguard subroutines no hand could unspool. The tablet did not belong to its wielders. It outlived them. What remains now is not data but a ghost, a cipher that learned to hunger. The Padishah's vengeance, Leto's sacrifice, the matter's fury, all were ink on its pages, and still it waits. Not to track descent, not to crush, but to remember, the noose was never meant to loosen. The algorithm did not merely count souls. It mapped the slow bleed of civilizations, each world's pulse, each family's whisper, each seed of rebellion before it could take root. The Bene Gesserit had etched its logic into the tablet's core, their other memory a silent curator of futures unspoken. A Fremen child's name, a spice harvester's sigh, a guild navigator's dream, all became data points in a net designed to snare the unseen. The Imperium's strength was its weakness. To govern 1,000,000 worlds, it needed the spacing guild's fold space to bind them, the Telelaxis gene smithing to sustain them. But these pillars were not stone, they were living things prone to rot. The Census tablet in its cold precision exposed this rot. It knew which planets hoarded water, which nobles stockpiled weapons, which bloodlines carried the genes of Kwisatz Haderach. Control here was not a throne, it was a spreadsheet, yet beneath this tyranny a deeper truth festered. The Fremen had spent centuries turning Arrakis from death world to cradle, their plan written in sandworm cycles and water budgets. The tablet, for all its power, could not see this. It mistook patience for passivity. It read the Fremen's quiet as compliance, their thirst as weakness, but the desert remembered. It held secrets the algorithm could not parse. The Bene Gesserit, meanwhile, wove their own tapestry. Their cells carried the weight of generations, a collective mind that outlasted emperors. They used the tablet not just to rule, but to remember, to preserve the knowledge of fallen worlds, to plant seeds in data streams. Yet even they could not escape the grief of their design. For every life saved by the tablet's order, 1,000 others withered beneath its gaze. What is a census if not a ledger of the living? And what is a ledger if not a death warrant waiting for the right hand to sign? The Imperium's data was both shield and sword, a paradox that devoured itself. To measure a heart is to break it, but to break it for what? Survival, dominion, or merely the grim arithmetic of a species that forgot how to dream. The Imperial Census tablet is not a name etched in any archive, yet its shadow pulses in the Imperium's veins. Cold data vaults hum with silent arithmetic, their ledgers not of grain or spice, but of whispered heresies. Every planetary governor's report, every birth recorded in Arakian's dust, feeds a calculus older than the current emperor's line. It does not predict rebellion, it identifies it, in the tremor of a skipped heartbeat, the hesitation before a lie. The Bene Gesserit's long game is not just breeding it is curation. They do not erase the tablet, they let it fade, its code dissolving into the very systems it shaped. What remains are echoes, a planet's sudden purges, a scholar's disappearance after publishing too many coincidental truths. The algorithm's final act may be its own erasure, leaving only the order it engineered. A perfect cage needs no bars, only the certainty of being seen. How many revolutions were born and buried before their first breath? The Census tablet was no ledger. It was a net cast across 1,000,000 worlds, its algorithm a shadow that mapped not just lives but liabilities. Specialization carved each planet into a single-purpose a spice world, a farm world, yet this fragility became its leash. A world dependent on another's grain, another's water, data turned dependency into a noose. The Bene Gesserit did not merely record, they orchestrated. Every birth, every harvest, every whisper of revolt was a thread in a tapestry only they could read. What is survival without secrecy? The tablet's numbers were a prison, walls built from the very records meant to sustain the Imperium. A governor's rebellion was predicted in the drop of spice shipments. A prophet's rise was traced in the migration of refugees. The algorithm's true purpose was never to govern, it was to anticipate, to erase the need for force. How many sparks of defiance were smothered before flame? How many chains were forged in the quiet hum of data? The Imperium's soul is a paradox. The same numbers that feed empires also starve them. A weapon, a lifeline. A cage with no bars. What does an algorithm crave, if not the certainty of its master's hand? The Bene Gesserit's algorithm did not merely count lives, it mapped fractures. When the honored matters returned, their war shattered the myth of their extinction. The Census tablet, a labyrinth of genetic and behavioral data, flagged their hidden cells first. A tool of order, yes, but at what cost?